My son said, "Stop trying to be my dad. You're just the guy who pays for things." I replied, "Understood." Then I liquidated his college fund to pay off my mortgage and put his prized Mustang up for sale. He had to get a job the next day. I, 45 male, am not the kind of guy who posts his life online. I'm a pretty private person, but what happened has pushed me to a point of clarity. And I guess I need to articulate it somewhere, if only to prove to myself that I'm not losing my mind. I married my wife, Julia, 43, a decade ago. She had a son, Billy, 17, from a previous relationship. His biological father has been completely out of the picture since Billy was a toddler. No calls, no cards, no child support. Just gone. I stepped in when Billy was 7. I've paid for everything: private school tuition, braces, summer camps, vacations. I taught him how to ride a bike and how to drive. For his 16th birthday, I bought him his dream car, a classic 1968 Ford Mustang. It wasn't new, and I spent the better part of a year and about $20,000 of my own money restoring it in our garage. It was our project. Or so I thought. The college fund is another thing. It's not some ancestral trust fund. It's a standard brokerage account I opened the year I married Julia, solely in my name. I've been diligently putting away a few $100s from every paycheck for 10 years. It's my money, from my salary. It currently sits at a little over $85,000. The plan was for him to go to a good out-of-state university, graduate debt-free, and have a great start in life. The last year has been tough. Billy has become more distant, more sullen, standard teenager stuff, I told myself. But it was laced with something else, a kind of dismissive arrogance. He talked to his friends about the Mustang like he'd earned it. He talked about his college plans like they were a birthright. Last Thursday was the breaking point. His report card came in. He's failing 2 classes. Not because he's struggling, but because he's just not showing up or turning in assignments. I tried to talk to him about it in his room. "Billy, we need to talk about these grades. This isn't going to cut it for the universities you've been looking at." He didn't even look up from his phone. "Whatever. It'll be fine." "It won't be fine. Your teachers are saying you're skipping classes. What's going on?" He finally looked at me, his eyes full of disdain. "Why do you even care? It's not like you're my real dad." The words stung, but I've heard variations of them before. I felt the familiar heat rise in my chest, the urge to lecture. But I pushed it down. "I care because I love you and I want you to have a good future." And then he said it, the words that changed everything. He stood up, towering over me even though he's still a kid. "No, you don't. You love playing the hero. Let's be honest. Stop trying to be my dad. You're just the guy who pays for things." I looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw a stranger. The heat in my chest vanished, replaced by an icy calm. There was no flicker of doubt, no hint of a joke, just cold, hard dismissal. He'd taken 10 years of my life, my effort, my love, and reduced it to a series of transactions. I didn't yell, I didn't argue, I just nodded. "Understood," I said, and I walked out of his room. The next morning, Friday, I worked from home. At 9:05 a.m., I called my financial advisor and instructed him to liquidate the entire college fund account. He informed me it would take several business days for the trades to settle and the funds to be available for transfer. Fine. At 10:30 a.m., I requested a formal mortgage payoff statement from my bank. My remaining balance is $76,450. The math works out nicely. At lunchtime, I took high-quality photos of the Mustang. The title is solely in my name, a detail I insisted on at the time for insurance purposes, much to Julia's annoyance. I wrote a detailed, honest ad, listing all the work I'd put into it, and posted it on several classic car forums and marketplaces for $25,000. A fair price. Julia and Billy have no idea yet. They just think I'm giving Billy the silent treatment. But I'm not angry. I'm not emotional. I'm just an ATM, and I'm closing my account. He wanted me to be the guy who pays for things. Fine. I've paid my dues. I'm done. Update 1. Thank you all for the support and the warnings. You were right about the storm. The last 2 weeks have been a masterclass in denial and entitlement. The reveal happened that first Saturday. Billy came into the living room, jingling the car keys. "Hey, I'm taking the car. Need some gas money," he said, not looking at me. "I'm afraid that's not possible," I said calmly. "Why not?" "Because it's for sale. I've already got a potential buyer lined up to see it." The silence was heavy. Julia looked up from her laptop. Billy just stared. "What?" he finally stammered. "It's my car, Billy. I'm selling it." Julia stood up. "Brian, what is this? You're going to sell his car to punish him." "It's not his car, Julia. And this isn't a punishment. It's a financial decision," I said. "Speaking of which, the funds from the investment account I set up for college are being liquidated. I'm using them to pay off the mortgage." The screaming started then, mostly from Julia. "How could I be so cruel? He's just a kid." "He didn't mean it." Billy went from rage to pleading. "But it's my car. You gave it to me. What am I supposed to tell my friends?" "You could tell them the truth," I suggested. "That the guy who paid for it decided to sell it." He stormed off. Julia followed me, yelling that I was using money as a weapon. "This is our son, Brian. You're supposed to love him unconditionally." "I did," I said, and the words felt like gravel. "But love has to be a two-way street. Right now, this feels like a toll road where I'm the only one paying." For the first week, they thought I was bluffing. Billy acted aloof, like he didn't care. Julia gave me the silent treatment, assuming I'd crack and apologize. The car sale process helped solidify that I was serious. I got a flurry of lowball offers and time wasters, which I calmly told them about. "Just got an offer for $15,000. Declined. Guy wanted to trade it for a jet ski. No thanks." Then a serious buyer, a guy named Bruce, contacted me. He wanted a professional third-party inspection. That took a few days to arrange. Billy watched from the window as the inspector went over the car with a clipboard. The look on his face wasn't anger anymore, it was fear. After a clean inspection, Bruce made a solid offer of $23,500. He needed a few days to arrange the funds. We signed a purchase agreement. It was all very real, very procedural. Last night I found Julia crying in the kitchen. She tried a different tactic. "Okay, Brian, I get it. You're hurt. You made your point. It's not too late. Call the guy back. We can fix this. Billy will apologize. Just tell me you'll stop this." "The purchase agreement is signed, Julia." The funds from the investment account finished clearing yesterday. The wire transfer to the mortgage company goes through tomorrow. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was just stating facts. But to them, facts feel like cruelty. There was a moment, looking at an old photo of me and a much younger Billy on a fishing trip, where I felt a deep pang of regret. A voice in my head whispered, "Is this worth it?" But then I remembered the coldness in his eyes, the disdain in his voice. "You're just the guy who pays for things." The resolve hardened again. He asked for this. He just didn't expect the transaction to be finalized. Update 2. The last month has been a slow-motion demolition. The emotional pressure campaign has failed, so now the dirty tricks have begun. The Mustang officially left 4 weeks ago. Bruce was a gentleman. He handed me the check, I handed him the title and keys. The sound of that engine fading away was the end of an era. Billy has been taking the bus to school. A few days later, the confirmation I was waiting for arrived in the mail. Mortgage payoff confirmation. Balance. I felt a lightness I hadn't felt in years. I left the letter on the kitchen counter. Julia saw it and didn't speak to me for 3 days. This is when she got desperate. Last week I got a call from my boss. He sounded deeply uncomfortable. "Hey Brian, everything okay at home?" I got a call from Julia. My stomach clenched, but not with surprise. I had been expecting it. "She said you've been acting erratically," he continued. "Said you drained a savings account and are making impulsive decisions." She framed it as her being worried about my stability. The rage I felt wasn't cold. It was white-hot. To try and poison my livelihood, the very source of the money she felt entitled to, was a betrayal on a whole new level. That night, I went to the gym and beat the hell out of a heavy bag for an hour, just to keep from putting my fist through a wall. Thankfully, weeks ago I'd had a quiet coffee with my boss and given him a heads up. Having some serious issues at home with my stepson. It might get messy, but I assure you, it will not impact my work. I calmly told him now. She's upset because I paid off my mortgage with my own money instead of funding a lifestyle for a 17-year-old who told me I was just his wallet. Her call was a desperate, manipulative tactic. My boss sighed, told me he figured as much and to not worry about it. Meanwhile, Billy was facing his own reality check. The phone bill came due. I texted him a screenshot of his $95 portion. The reply was predictable. "WTF. You've always paid for it." I replied, "My role has been clarified. I'm no longer the guy who pays for things." He needed money. Fast. For 2 weeks he tried applying to the cool jobs, the coffee shop, the bookstore. No calls back. His resume is a blank piece of paper. The arrogance slowly bled out of him, replaced by a sullen panic. He finally, reluctantly, put in applications at fast food joints and big box stores. Last week he came home wearing the ugliest polyester uniform I've ever seen, sickly yellow and brown, with a matching visor. He smelled of fried chicken. He got a job at a local chain. He doesn't look at me. Julia and I are living like ghosts in the same house. Her parents, Albert and Evelyn, have been sending me self-righteous texts about how I'm ruining Billy's future. I've muted their conversations. This isn't punishment. It's cause and effect. They set the terms. I'm just enforcing the contract. Final update. The dust has settled, but not in the way you see in movies. It is settled in the way it does in real life. The broken pieces are swept up and you're left with a clean but empty room. Julia and I are divorced. We separated 5 months ago, and the final decree came through last month. The counseling we tried was a disaster. It all came back to one impassable gulf. She saw my actions as a vindictive overreaction, while I saw them as the logical conclusion to the role her son assigned me. The real turning point, however, came from our lawyers. When Julia first consulted her attorney, she went in with the belief, encouraged by her father, that she could take me to the cleaners. She came out of that meeting looking like she'd seen a ghost. My lawyer had laid it out for me very clearly. Paying off the mortgage with my separate funds didn't magically make the house all mine. That was a fantasy. However, the legal principle of reimbursement was very much in my favor. Since the funds were from a non-marital sole ownership account, I had a rock-solid claim to be reimbursed the full $76,450 off the top from the proceeds of the house sale before the remaining equity was split. So when the house sold, the first check for $76,450 was cut to me. The remaining equity was then divided 50-50. For Julia, this was a financial apocalypse. She had counted on splitting the entire value of a fully paid-off house. Instead, she walked away with less than a quarter of what she had fantasized about. It wasn't the total victory I had naively imagined at first, but it was a smarter, more realistic one. I had protected my capital. When she realized she couldn't legally force me to fund her and Billy's life at the level she wanted, the last pretense of fixing us vanished. She moved in with her parents. As for Billy, the revenge wasn't a single event. It was the slow, grinding reality of a life without my financial cushion. The chicken job lasted 2 months before he was fired for his attitude. He worked at a big box store stocking shelves overnight, but quit after 6 weeks, complaining it was too hard. He's 18 now, a high school graduate with a dismal GPA, living in his grandparents' spare room. He is, for all intents and purposes, going nowhere. I saw him a few weeks ago at a grocery store. He was with his mom. He looked thin, tired, and angry. He saw me in the checkout line, glared with pure uncut resentment, and then turned his back. There was no apology, no understanding. In his mind, I am, and always will be, the villain who blew up his life. I've come to accept that. You can't force someone to see a reality they refuse to acknowledge. And me? The first few months were brutal. The silence in my new, smaller townhouse was a physical weight. I mourned the family I thought I had. I looked at old photos and felt a grief so sharp it took my breath away. It wasn't a clean break, it was an amputation. But it's getting better. I'm focusing on myself. I've doubled down on my retirement savings with the money I'm no longer spending. I took the $23,500 from the Mustang and bought myself a ridiculously nice mountain bike, and I've been exploring trails on the weekends. Last week, I adopted a dog from a local shelter. A scruffy mutt named Gus. He doesn't care who pays for things. He's just happy I'm there to throw the ball. I lost a wife and a son, but I regained my self-respect and my future. It was a hell of a price to pay, but it was a transaction I had to make. I am finally, truly, out of service.